It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
This next question is from Gimme Bananas. Gimme says, I have disability insurance through work. Is that okay? Or should I get disability insurance outside of work? First, Brian, I think it'd be helpful if you explain to people, what is disability insurance? Through work, outside of work, how should I think about that? How should I approach it? What should kind of like go on in my head?
I think the answer is yes. And what I mean by that, let me go, because this is a great question. I love because because insurance puts people to sleep, so we don't cover a ton of that content, even though it is incredibly important. Whether we're talking about disability, life insurance, don't skip those steps because that's kind of that's at the heart of step one of financial order operations, deductibles covered. Is we want to make sure risk is minimized, and one of the biggest risks out there is that you will get disabled or hurt where you can't actually work anymore for yourself and provide for your family. Fortunately, there's insurance that you can buy.
That's right.
And look, you can buy it from your employer. Typically, it's cheaper that way versus if you go out on your own. But here's some things to think about. First of all, if you're in an industry where maybe you're going to be changing jobs a few times in your career, you might be thinking about portability. So that would encourage you to go outside of your employer. If you think you're probably at the place you're going to be the rest of your life, it's probably, there's a risk there, but it's okay inside. There's a bigger risk that I worry about with disability, though, is that how are you paying the premiums?
There you go. Yep.
Because, being a CPA, thinking about taxes, there's a big way with disability. They give you a huge benefit. When the government set this up from a tax perspective, they said there's a dividing line that we need to know how you're paying your premiums on your disability. If you pay them pre-tax, that's fine if your employer offers that as something that comes out of your paycheck, you're not taxed on it. That's great. You feel like, hey, I'm just like my 401k, I'm getting a tax benefit. There's a big problem, though. If you ever are truly disabled and it activates the insurance policy, every one of the benefit payments you receive will be taxed. However, if you pay your disability premiums with after-tax money, meaning you receive no tax benefit when the premium was paid, if you ever do become disabled, those proceeds will be received tax-free. So that allows you to now think about, when I'm thinking about how much disability I need, it doesn't have to be 100%. Because if you're avoiding 30 to 40% of taxes with this benefit, you can buy a lower percentage. And then, Bo, the last thing, because I know we can't do a whole show on this, but there is a difference between general disability versus own OC disability. Kind of give them some highlights on that.
Yeah, essentially there's two different types of definition you can have for disability insurance. There's one that says, hey, you can't work at all. Like you couldn't go be a greeter at Walmart. You couldn't do any vocation. And there's another type of disability that says, no, you can't do your specific vocation. So if you are a surgeon, you might want own OC disability insurance. Says, hey, I cannot do surgery. Even though I could go be a professor or be a school teacher, I might not be able to generate the same income that I could being a surgeon. So I want a specific policy that's going to protect me from that. Obviously, own occupation disability is going to be a little bit more expensive, but if you are someone in a highly specialized job or you're a higher income earner and it'd be difficult you replace that in a different vocation, then you may want to look at that vocation, and it doesn't have to be either or. You may say, hey, with my job, because of what I do for a living, I already have that own OC coverage. Maybe to supplement that, I want to go out and get a general, any occupation coverage to be a little bit less expensive. And I think what you said was great, Brian. Your goal should be maybe 60 to 80% of what your wages are. That's kind of a nice rule of thumb for how much disability insurance to carry.
And then just the last tip, make sure you know how these things integrate because you want to go read the language of the contract to make sure that when you go buy that additional policy, you're not really getting any additional coverage because there's a disclaimer or there's a loophole in the previous policy. It says that they're just not going to pay because you've got coverage somewhere. Just make sure you know how everything integrates as well.
Love it, love it.